Hey guys, Chairman here with another vlog style video. I guess I'm doing more of these now. This will be kind of fun. So I wanted to do a video about Trifielding because recently Carmen from PGH Weiss Schwarz put out a wonderful blog article about Trifielding, which was written in all caps and is like one of the most fun, entertaining pieces of Weiss literature that I've had the privilege of reading. I'll link in the description below, but yeah, like that was a really fun piece of content, and I think the purpose of that article was just to get people talking about Trifielding more and like the pros and cons of Trifielding and just like open up more discussion, I think, around this kind of thing, which I think is great. I think that it definitely did what it tried to do, and so I thought it would be great to make a video about it, you know, to further the discussion of Trifielding. And actually I was shouted out in that article. He mentioned a blurb from one of the videos I made about when to push for damage, because that was a question that was asked on the Weiss Discord, like, oh gosh, like pre-pandemic. This is probably like 6 years ago. Yeah, this video, yeah, this video right there. Yeah, so I felt like, you know, he mentioned me, so I gotta make a video mentioning him. You know, it's the endless content creator loop, and you know, I thought what better way to do it than with like a tier list video, right? Because tier lists are super popular, you know. Great way to just talk about stuff and order things in a way. So we can make, you know, like a Trifielding tier list. Trifielding tier list. And you get to see kind of my horrible creative process where I just make everything in Photoshop. Yeah, so we can have a Trifielding tier list. And, you know, at the very top, we could have, you know, has to Trifield. So these are gonna be decks that, like, if you don't Trifield, you're gonna lose probably. Like, your deck is so dependent on Trifielding at level 2 that, you know, you have no other choice. The second tier could be like wants to. So like you don't have to Trifield in these decks, but generally speaking, the deck benefits a lot more from Trifielding than from not Trifielding. And yeah, like if you're playing the deck, you're probably building it in a way to benefit from Trifielding rather than not, right? Oh, whoops, that's not the right one. This one? We have a second one of this. Okay, all right, and then the third tier, this will be the gets to tier. So they are allowed to Trifield. They don't lose anything for Trifielding, but they don't have to Trifield. And so it's like, it's very optional. Whether you Trifield or not is very dependent on like the game state and what you've drawn and stuff like that. So it's basically like the 50-50 mark. You either, like, Trifielding is probably good sometimes, probably bad sometimes, and then not Trifielding is probably good sometimes, probably bad sometimes. So this is like the tier where you really have to think about what you're doing. But like your deck or your game plan isn't going to like lean you in either direction. The next tier is going to be the shouldn't tier. And I realize these are going to be kind of hard to fit in. I guess that does fit. So these shouldn't. Like, you could, but you shouldn't. And that's because you either don't have the tools for it or it just doesn't help your game plan. But you could, like, you could Trifield. It's like, you're not going to lose the game. But, like, you really shouldn't, right? And then the last tier is going to be the can't tier. So these decks can't Trifield like to save their life, right? Like they just can't. Like if you do, you lose basically. So cannot Trifield. If you Trifield, you are probably just ending yourself, right? That's basically the polar opposite of the has to tier. And so instead of like, you know, tiering every single deck in the English metagame, I feel like I'm just gonna list a few examples in these tiers and just talk about how these tiers operate, you know, on a more general scale. That way, you know, you can fill out the rest of the tiers with your own deck, or you can try to guess where your deck fits into this tier. And obviously, like, every deck is going to be different. So even if it's the same archetype or like the same climax combos, if you've built your deck to Trifield, then that will, you know, shift. Like, not every single deck is the same, right? Okay, but there's a problem with this tier list, all right? Well, the problem with this tier list is that I've called it the Trifielding tier list. And on the very top of this tier list, it is like the decks that need to Trifield, right? But this is kind of counter to the article, because the article is talking about how Trifielding is actually not a good idea. So if I make a tier list like this, and I put the top tier being the has to Trifield tier, it would make it seem like the top is better, right? That's just how human minds work. That's how people think. So this tier list is actually really bad. So instead of continuing with this tier list idea, we're going to have the early game stability tier list. That's right. And we are going to flip the tiers. So we're going to put the has to tier at the very bottom. And I guess we can make it a little bit more descriptive. This is the has to Trifield tier. And we will put it at the very bottom because that's where the worst is, right? Because we don't want to Trifield. Like, Trifielding is bad. So we're gonna put the has to Trifield list tier at the very bottom. And then we're gonna put the wants to in the second to bottom, right? We're just gonna reverse it. This is the wants to Trifield tier, right? This is now the gets to Trifield tier. And this one stays the same, right? It's always in the middle. And then, and the second one is, what is it? Yeah, shouldn't Trifield, right? I'm wondering if I should rename it like good early game. It's like, yeah, okay, actually we'll just name it all like shouldn't. This all. And then instead of the last one being can't Trifield, we'll call it don't Trifield. And now we have flipped the tier list. And now the worst tier, the bottom tier, is now the Trifield tier. And the top tier is now the decks that don't Trifield. And so now, Carmen, you can stop hate watching and actually enjoy the content, right? I flipped the tiers. On top is going to be all the decks that don't Trifield. And on the bottom is going to be all the decks that do have the Trifield. And you know, now people, when they look at the tier list, they're gonna think that the good decks are on the top and the bad decks are on the bottom, and they'll avoid the bad decks, right? Yeah, I got you. So yeah, anyways, I'm gonna start from the bottom, and we're gonna move up to the top. Now, thankfully, in the year 2025 of Weiss Schwarz, English Weiss Schwarz, we don't have any decks that have to Trifield. This tier is thankfully empty. So let's say it's empty. Actually, it is functionally empty. No deck currently in the metagame has to Trifield. Every deck has the option to not. What is going on? Okay, hello? Can we? Oh, there we go. Every deck has the option to not Trifield in 2025. Thankfully, every deck has the option to. However, there are two decks that are kind of close that I can put into this tier as an example for like learning purposes, right? So one of these decks is a deck that doesn't exist anymore, but existed historically in the past that people are probably very familiar with. And the other deck is a deck that it's like the closest thing we have to this tier in the current day and age, and I'll explain a bit more. So let's take the historic example first. The historic deck that needed to Trifield every single game is Alice, Sword Art Online Alice. This deck, if you went second, you basically were forced to Trifield, otherwise you lose the game, pretty much on the spot. And so why does this deck need a Trifield every single game? It's because the Alice level 1 game plan is so stock intensive. So the way Alice works is she has a brainstorm effect. It's a spammable brainstorm effect. You flip over 3 cards, and among those 3 cards, if you hit the 2/1 Alice, then you get to summon it directly onto your board. Now, that's obviously very strong, and you basically want to do that. The moment you hit level 1, you want to mill down your deck into, there's like a few cards left on your deck. You can use the Straight Path Alice or other cards to shuffle the 2/1 Alices back into your deck. Then you use this brainstorm a couple of times, spawn in a bunch of 2/1 Alices that have Climax combo, use the Climax combo, and then now you're just like in the driver's seat for the rest of the game. You're chilling, you're winning, right? It's so good. The problem with this deck is that if you're playing the mirror, let's say it's 2 Alice players playing the mirror. The player who goes first will play a card, attack with it once, and pass the turn, right? Then, if their opponent does not hit them to level 1 immediately and just plays a normal level 0 game, on the second turn of level 0, they get to play 3 attackers, attack with all 3 level 0s, and now they have 4 stock. And then on their third turn, they're comfortably somewhere in level 1. Their deck is pretty small at this point, and it's so easy for them to get a full board of Alices with 4 stock, right? You can use 3 brainstorms, and you can use 1 extra stock to either shuffle cards back or salvage something with like the Sortiolena, or like use a brainstorm or stuff like that. You're such in a good position if you go first in this mirror, right? You go first, you attack once, attack 3 times, and you have 4 stock to summon 3 Alices. Very, very easy. If you're going second in this matchup, you are basically losing if you're doing in that situation, right? So they attack you once, you attack twice, you have 2 stock now, but you're not level 1. Then they attack you 3 times, now you're level 1. So now you either try to summon out 2 Alices with 2 stock at level 1 when you're not very milled through, so you have to mill costlessly somehow, and you can only summon 2 Alices at most. Or you just have to attack with like some other cards, and you don't run a level 1 climax combo in this deck, right? So you just have to attack with random cards. Sure, now you have 5 stock, presumably, but now your opponent is going to get to their Alices first. They're going to use their Alice climax combo first. They're going to salvage counters with their Alice climax combo first, and then now your Alices have to attack into their Alices, and they have counters, so that means you're going to lose your Alices. Basically, whoever establishes the board of Alices first wins in the matchup. It's like first Alice wins, right? So if you go second and you attack twice, you are losing the game because your opponent is just going to have the easiest full board Alice before you can do anything, right? So if you go second, you have to attack 3 times so that you can get 3 stock. So then your opponent gets to attack 3 times, and then now on your second turn, you're somewhere in level 1, and you have to try to get at least 2, if not 3 Alices on your second turn. And you need every single stock in order to do that, right? Also, if you attack 3 times into the Alice opponent, you probably hit them pretty high into like their level 1, so that when you do your Alice combo, then they're probably taking a lot more damage. Otherwise, you will be also losing the damage race because, again, you know, they have the easier route to Alice, so you have to take the riskier gamble to set up your Alices. This deck is bad, thank God. This deck was atrocious to play. The mirror was awful. I think it was just like just a freaking mind-numbing mirror. And oftentimes, like, the first 2 turns of the game would decide the rest of the game because of just how, like, crucial the early game is with, like, your Alices and getting your Alices out and, like, being able to... And it's, like, so random because it's the brainstorm, right? So sometimes you, like, brainstorm 3 times and you don't hit a single Alice, and then, like, the last, like, 3 or 4 cards of your deck are all your Alices. It's, like, just not... It's just miserable. Miserable deck. But back then, when you were playing this deck and you went second, you basically had to attack 3 times in the mirror, otherwise you lose. Obviously, if you're not playing the mirror, there's like, maybe you don't have to attack 3 times, but generally speaking, if you went second in that deck, you were trying to attack as many times as possible because your Alices would just get you all your advantage back. Like, once you hit your Alices, you are just like swimming in resources. So you actually don't care that you lose resources early. You really needed the stock. Like, that deck needed the stock like no business, right? All right, the second deck that goes in this tier, and it exists today, but most players won't play it like they have to Trifield, but like on paper, this deck has to Trifield, and that is going to be Macross Delta. All right, so why does Macross Delta on paper have to Trifield? It is because their level 1 game plan requires 3 stock, right? So in a perfect world, if Macross Delta hits level 1, they spend 2 stock on their 1/1 all-career events, and they spend 1 stock on the Reign of Brainstorm. And then now they have, you know, the link condition, they have all their climax combos available, they can attack 3 times, refresh their deck, and they're set. That requires 3 stock. Macross Delta does not have a way to cheat stock using like a hand of stock or anything else. So they have to attack 3 times before level 1. Obviously, if you go first as Macross Delta, you get 1 attack. The next turn, you're still probably at level 0, so you can just attack twice, or you can just attack 3 times normally, and then now you hit level 1 with like 4 stock, 3 to 4 stock, and now you're chilling. So going first with Macross Delta, very, very comfortable game, right? If you go second and you don't attack 3 times, then at level 1, you either cannot get both Flywalker events into memory, or you cannot use the Reign of Brainstorm. In which case, if you can't get both Flywalker events to memory, you can't double Climax combo. So if you play a Climax that turn, you're -1, probably it's going to be kind of rough. If you do not use the Reign of Brainstorm, then you have to get really lucky that you've drawn a Climax and have all the Climax names in Waiting Room, which at this point in the game is like super unlucky. Like, you'd be super lucky for that to happen. You basically can't count on it, right? And so theoretically, if you wanted to do the Link Super Dimensional Venus combo on your first turn at 1, going second, you have to Trifield. Now, most Macross Delta Link players, instead of Trifielding, they just say, we are not going to do the Link combo at level 1 on the first turn. We are still going to play our level 0 game safely and more stable, and we are just going to Link combo whenever it's convenient, right? And so most Macross Delta players that you will talk to at the high level in English, they will on their first turn of level 1, they will try to do one of the 2 combos. They'll either do the Kaname combo to summon out like the other Kanames and attack, or they will use the Mikumo combo if they have the early pick condition for the Mikumo, and they get the 2 salvages from that. And then on the following turn, that's when they set up Link. Alright, that's how most of the high level players are playing the deck. But it's still a big problem, because that means that on the first turn of your level 1, you are opting for a lower power turn, as well as your climaxes in that deck, you only have 2 Axia and 2 Ikenai Borderline. So you basically have to draw the right climax with the right hand in order to even climax combo on the first turn of level 1. Oftentimes in that deck, if you are not Trifielding going second, your first turn of level 1 is no climax combo, and you're just attacking with level 0s again. It's super low power, right? This is why when I labbed Macross Delta, I tried my best to not have to play Reina Brainstorm. And I came up with a deck, the 8-choice list. It does not play Reina Brainstorm, and I do not have the Trifield going second, and I can still Valkyrie combo, because in that deck, I don't Reina Brainstorm, right? It's just 4/4 climaxes. It's super easy to get 1-1 set up. So if I go into level 1 with 2 stock, I could just play 2 events and just have full combo. Or if I don't want to play 2 events and have full combo, I can still get either combo really consistently, because all the climaxes in my deck are a level 1 combo. So it's super easy for me to start with one combo and then transition to the other combo. So that deck, I feel like, solves the issue of having to Trifield, because it is built to not need to Trifield, right? I never need to Trifield going second in a deck, and I will still be able to have climax combo level 1 turn, very powerful, and or just double combo going second turn, right? So this is kind of why I made my 8-choice Macross deck. And so if you want to see that deck, you know, again, I think there's a profile here, profile on Nitres's channel. I think that deck is a really interesting way of solving the problem of Macross Delta on paper needing to Trifield, or just having a very weak like first few turns at level 1, right? But functionally, this is empty, right? These are like these are theoretical. So I'm just gonna theoretical. These are theoretical options here. These are theoretical decks that have to Trifield, but realistically in 2025, no decks has to Trifield. Okay, moving up the tier list, we have the wants to Trifield tier list. So this is the tier that they could not Trifield, but if they don't Trifield, they're kind of like they really should be Trifielding if they can, because they just have so many tools to do it. And then again, this is all my personal opinion. So I think the bottom tier, the theoretical stuff, like this is like everybody should agree with me on this. Like this is just, there's no like debate here. Starting from here, these are like, you know, this is my opinion. Obviously, it's my take. So if you don't agree with me, please let me know in the comments below why your thoughts differ. But like, I'll explain my reason, obviously, right? I think Overlord wants to Trifield and really has the tools to Trifield. There's a lot of different tools in Overlord that allows you to Trifield, and I think they basically just want to Trifield because of how much stock they use going into their Ein's turn, and how much like extra stock in this deck just makes their Ein's turn so much more comfortable that they're really not doing themselves favors if they don't Trifield. Now, for tools of Trifielding for Overlord, they have so many tools, right? They have the Ein's Bouncer, right? That card is basically built to allow you to Trifield because you can pay 1, clock yourself, and then just get 2 of your attackers back. Obviously, you potentially take more damage, but like in Overlord, that's not really a big issue. And that basically allows you to play very aggressively at level 0 and get a bunch of stock, right? So the Bouncer is a very good tool for Trifielding. They also have the Clean Cut, right? The Albedo Clean Cut. Clean Cut is a wonderful card tool for Trifielding. Basically, if your deck runs Clean Cut, you can Trifield. So they have that, and then they have the Ein's Drop Search that also, when it reverses itself, or when it gets reversed, you can do the clock yourself mill 2, grab a level 1 or lower. So that also just gets you a card without using a stock, and it kind of like replaces itself on board. So they have a bunch of level 0s that just allow you to Trifield. Not to mention, just like if you can't play Brides anymore, but like back in the day they had Brides. And then also your Shell Tears +2 on Climax combo, right? So they salvage a card and then they go to memory, come back. So you can just like dump a bunch of hand early, get all your hand back with the Shell Tears. And then once you get into Ein's, like hand doesn't really matter anyways, because they're never killing your Ein's, and you just know you're using all your hand to really get climaxes. But like, you know, hand size going into Ein's turn is like you know, like it's kind of fake. So stock is really important in this deck, because your Ein's cost stock, your 1/1 cost stock, milling cost stock, right? And you just really want to have as much stock as you are allowed to have, so you can cushion your Ein's turn very well. And so yeah, this deck just wants to Trifield, and it gets to because it plays the Eins Bouncer and the clean cuts and stuff like that. A lot of lists are playing the clean cuts now because it just makes your early game really comfortable, and it just gives you the ability to Trifield. And because also with that deck is your level 0s are so weak that like if you don't Trifield, you're really not like doing like you want your level 0 game to be over pretty quickly in that deck. Because like your level 1s are so strong, Shell is so strong, you want to set your 1/1 Eins, you just want to get to like level 2 at a reasonable pace, right? And then your level 0s aren't really killing anything except for like the Cocytus Runner. The Cocytus Runner, and then so like if you go first, you start with Cocytus Runner, but if you go second, what's really good is actually if you have Cocytus Runner, Clean Cut, and then another card, or Cocytus Runner and then like the Bouncer, you can use the Bouncer and then the Cocytus Runner can run anywhere. So like again, Trifielding is like so nice because of that, right? Again, they have so many good tools for Trifielding. They just really want to Trifield. I think they just want to Trifield every game. All right, the next deck in this tier list that I will give an example for is going to be Hatsune Miku. I'm just going to call it Proka. This is my channel. I don't have to say the official name. Proka. This is going to be 8 standby. Specifically, is this Akito? Yeah, Toya. Sorry, the Toya. I think the other guy's name is Akito. The Toya Akito combo just like gives you infinite hand. The Akito, I think it's like the turn that you play a Toya, if it's on board, you can pay 1. Bounce itself back to hand and you salvage 1. So effectively, you pay 1, get a card back, but then also the Toya comes back into your hand and clears up the board space so they can stand by it too. So you like kind of +2-ish a little bit. It's not like a real +2, but it kind of feels like a +2 because then your standby is like actually giving you a +1 there. So you just get like infinite hand at some point, and it's like you're just going to be overhand all day, and until level 2 or until you have the 2-1 Rin, you can't really convert your hand to stock. So like you might as well just Trifield in that deck and then just get the extra stock from the 3rd attack. It's not like you need the hand anyways. Like you're going to have infinite hand really, really quickly. The Toya and the Akito, they also bond to each other. So it's like you don't even have to hold these pieces. You just have to hold 1, and then you go bond, bam, like full board, full hand, like what's that, right? Like this deck just like you could play level 0 slowly, but like your level 1 is so insane that like you just want to get to your level 1 as soon as possible with like and just like infinitely farm resources. So yeah, I feel like this deck also just like wants to Trifield. Like it doesn't have to, but like why would it not, right? All right. So these are examples. Like if you think of some decks that you would put into this tier, you could think of it. But here's some examples for you to think of, right? All right, next tier, the gets to Trifield tier. So these are the like I said earlier, these are the 50-50 decks. Whether they Trifield or not is not like based on their deck. Like the deck does not lean one way or the other. It's really based on like the situation. Now most of these decks that are in the gets to Trifield tier have tools that allow you to Trifield, right? So I'm talking clean cuts, I'm talking JC, the bounce back, right? Whenever another character is front attack, pay 1, bounce that character back, right? These tools allow you to Trifield without losing like resources, right? JC is a 1 stock for 1 card, so basically effectively your last attack is free, and then the clean cut, it allows you to save an attacker by opening the lane, so effectively that attacker is also free, right? So these are like the good tools. But not every deck that has these tools wants to Trifield, right? Or not every set that has these tools wants to have decks that Trifield. So for this tier, I'm gonna give some examples of decks that have these tools, play these tools, and thus they get to Trifield, and generally speaking is like a mainstay of their gameplay. I feel like the decks in this tier have these tools, and basically like every other game they will Trifield because they just have the access to these tools, and they will just they will make that choice very often because they have the tools. So for the JC example, I'm going to put Licorice Recoil. Licorice Recoil's JC, they're talking to JC, is freaking busted. It's a 4K attacker for free, and it's also a JC. It works really well with their infinite level 1 combos. They have like a bajillion level 1 combos that are really good to recycle. So oftentimes at level 1, you're just playing 2 attackers and a JC. Another reason why Licorice Trifield is so strong is because they have Fuki, which is when one of your characters direct attacks, you can assign -1000 power to any front row card. And so basically, if your opponent opens turn 1 runner, and you Trifield on the runner with like 2 Fukis or even 1 Fuki, you basically -2000 or -4000 power to that runner no matter where it runs to, because you just attack the other lanes first and then the runner loses power. So if you open 1 Fuki and they open a 3-5 runner, you can just kill the runner with a 1-5. Like that's crazy, right? If you open double Fuki, you can -4k to the runner. The runner is dead. There is no runner that survives a -4k, all right, like on attacks. So the fact that like Licorice gets to play that card means that they just get to Trifield like every other game when their opponent opens like turn 1 runner or like turn 1 4K beater. You just open double Fuki, Trifield them, they lose their card, you just like farm them. It's so crazy. And then you like JC back the Fuki and then like you just get to do it all over again. So Licorice really has strong tools to Trifield, and they basically just get to Trifield every other game that they want to. It's really good. They also have Clean Cut, but the Clean Cut's kind of weak, so I won't use them as an example for Clean Cut. Although if you're playing like the Father Figures build, if you're playing like the Mika and the guy whose name I refuse to remember, that deck runs the Clean Cut and will often Clean Cut because again, like that deck also like generates infinite hand with the dudes in the back. Okay. For the Clean Cut example though, I would like to put 7 Deadly Sins. So 7 Deadly Sins. Not every list is running the Meliodas Clean Cut, but a lot of lists are, and the lists that do run the Meliodas Clean Cut are often trying to Trifield, mostly because like they have a level 0 combo, and like the Elizabeth Brainstorm is just such a good attacker at 0, and if you can Clean Cut it back, you just get a free attack, to get the free stock. You just start farming infinite advantage. Like the deck just generates a ton of advantage anyways because of the level 0 combo, so like you don't really hurt in hand if you get to Clean Cut. Clean Cut also just like makes your level 0 a lot more flexible. You're running 4 of this Brainstorm, it doesn't really get to attack profitably usually, so Clean Cut really helps you out there. Yeah, so I do think like 7 Deadly Sins, if they're playing the Clean Cut, they're a deck that will often Trifield. And it's a very strong option in that deck. Now they don't have to, and if they're not running the Clean Cut, they probably don't get to Trifield, but it is a really good option. There's also another deck that has a level 0 combo and a Clean Cut that would go into this tier, but I'll leave that as an exercise for the viewer. I think it should be pretty obvious what that deck is. All right, so this is a Clean Cut example. They get a Trifield. Now, I will give a bonus example in this tier, and this is going to be maybe a controversial take, and this one should be good to open up some discussion. Azure Lane gets to Trifield, but does not want to Trifield. Now, this is pretty controversial, I think, because I feel like every Azure Lane player, when they open Fuso Yamashiro, if they have like Fuso and a Yamashiro, or like double Fuso, I feel like every Azure Lane player under the sun will just jam Fuso Yamashiro in the front row on turn 2 and just swing like big damages. And I've been there, I've done that, you know, especially in like my 2-soul build, which was really cancer. So I understand, you know, I'm an Azure Lane player myself, but realistically speaking, it's probably not the best play, right? Realistically speaking, I think a really strong play for Azure Lane Fuso Yamashiro is if you open double Fuso, I would still play them, and I would still use them to search 2 Yamashiros out of deck. But I would arrange my board. I would have Fuso Yamashiro in the front and the second Fuso in the back. And then I would attack with the Fuso and the Yamashiro. So the Yamashiro has 4 soul. Sorry, the Yamashiro has 3 soul, the Fuso has 2 soul. So I would front with the Yamashiro for 3, and I would direct with the Fuso for 3. So this is a full levels of damage, right? But you're only attacking twice. And then if they clear your board on the follow-up turn, then you can move your Fuso up from the back, play your second Yamashiro that you searched the previous turn, and now you have 2 more 2-soul beaters that are very big, are probably contesting level 1s, or level 0s if they cancel and they're still stuck at level 0. But basically, if you don't attack 3 times, you are in a really good position, because you're either sticking 6 damage, in which case, they're in the middle of level 1, they've just taken a bunch of damage, they're staring down big bodies, and they're like, oh, what's going on, right? Or they cancel, and if they cancel those swings, and they're stuck at level 0, and then they're staring down Fuso Yamashiro, and they're gonna have a bad time. The next turn, if they don't answer all of them, then you can move up your Fuso, or you can play your Yamashiro from hand, and then you just like go to town on them, right? But if you commit all 3, and they answer all 3 by going to level 1 first and doing like a level 1 climax combo, you're kind of like out to dry, right? It's kind of unplayable. It's pretty bad if you play all 3, basically. Like, even if you have the Fuso on board and your Yamashiros are swinging for like 3 soul or 4 soul direct, if they clear the board, you only have a 500 power Fuso on the next turn, right? If you don't have a third Yamashiros, like somehow magically, then like that Fuso is either stuck in the back row, which I've seen this a lot. I've seen a lot of Azure players, they'll do it. They'll like Fuso, Yamashiro, attack with the board, get their board wiped, and then they have like a 500 attacker in the back row that they either never move up to attack with because it's so shit. And so they either like leave it in the back row forever, or they play over it, or they move it up into the front row. It's 500 power, never contests anything, just like runs itself into a 1-0, and then gives your opponent like a free climax combo again, and the next turn they just get freaking cleaned, right? So basically, you get to Trifield. It's an option. Obviously, if you're running Fuso Yamashiro and you have nothing better to do, you can Trifield. But I would highly recommend, if you open double Fuso, you should consider just attacking twice and leaving the Fuso in the back with the Yamashiro in hand, you have a great follow-up play on the following turn. Don't always Trifield. I feel like a lot of times you shouldn't Trifield, and a lot of Azure Lane players will still just autopilot the Trifield. I think this is a deck that really should benefit from not Trifielding every game. So it's an option, and your deck does have like a lot of ways to recover from Trifielding, namely like Taiho Brainstorm is like a freaking drug, right? The reason why this deck actually can facilitate Trifielding even when they don't play Clean Cut or like JC is because the way the Taiho combo works is you have to bounce the Taihos to hand to get stock, which kind of capture max hand size at 5, so like you can't have that much hand in this deck anyway, so like the Trifielding doesn't hurt the deck that much, which is why it's in the gets 2 instead of the shouldn't. I think if this deck wasn't running Taiho combo, it actually should be in this tier, but because it's running Taiho combo, or at least the good, like the meta deck is running Taiho combo, it's in this tier, right? But try not to Trifield if you have a good follow-up play by just holding the Fuso and Yamashiro. Alright, moving up to the shouldn't Trifield tier. This tier are decks that, like, theoretically, on paper, they could Trifield. Like, maybe they have Clean Cut in the set, or like JC in the set, but they like really don't want to run them, or this should not be part of their game plan, right? This is the deck. And first of all in this list is going to be Slime. So Slime, basically, they have Clean Cut, and I've tested Clean Cut. It's alright. They just don't benefit from Trifielding that much because they have so much time to set up like Muron. Muron's a level 2 combo. This deck doesn't have an endgame combo, so they don't need a lot of stock going into the endgame. And Muron gives them like infinite resources at level 2 anyway, so like you're not really hurting to get resources ever in this deck. And then so like you don't really want to risk the early game instability of Trifielding for no like immediate or long-term gain. You just don't get anything in this deck from Trifielding going second. They're just you actually just get nothing. Like there's no benefit to it, right? So you shouldn't Trifield. This deck really wants to go first and open a runner, but even if you go second, a lot of times in this deck you just attack once with a runner. Like if they play a runner and you just trade the runners if you can't like answer other ways, because you're just gonna outgrind your opponent over the course of the game. So like if you attack 3 times and let your opponent runner live, then you just like lose the game because you let your opponent +1 when they shouldn't have, and then you just like went down on resources at a time where you're not getting anything back for the resources. In general, like if you're playing Slime and you're playing also like level 1 combo or even the level 0 combo, so the level 0 combo doesn't plus you, and then any level 1 combo you play, you kind of want to set it up, so in which case like you don't really want to lose a bunch of hand at 0, because your level 1 combos aren't going to find themselves, right? And generally speaking, you're going to have to probably rekey for them. And then your level 1 combos don't really use that much stock, or if you're playing standby, you actually plus so much stock that like you don't really need to Trifield. And again, you're like not really banking stock for anything. Like stock is never like an issue in this deck, I feel like. So yeah, you shouldn't Trifield in Slime. I don't think you should Trifield going second in Slime. I feel like that's kind of trolling, right? If you Trifield going second in Slime, I feel like you just, I don't know what you're doing. Alright, the second deck in this tier list is going to be Ferin. So Ferin has a JC, it has the Himmel JC, right? So theoretically, decks that run Himmel JC could Trifield. But a lot of decks don't run Himmel JC, because that card's like not that great and you don't need that much yellow in your deck anyways, and your stock is just better used elsewhere. I think Ferin just has, again, Ferin also does not require a lot of stock at level 3 because of the Brainstorm. The Brainstorm allows you to cheat stock, so you can go into level 3 with like 0 stock and still triple Ferin combo, which is insane, right? So like why do you need to attack extra at level 0 to get stock that you're never going to actually need in the long term? And then in the short term, like it's just like it doesn't really make sense. You're really trying to aim to get your Fern event loop online as fast as possible, and that doesn't require attacks, that requires like hand sculpting. So in general, like Ferin wants to use their resources at level 0 to grab Ferns and events more so than like get stock through attacks. And then because you're just like looping climaxes in the mid game, you're gonna do a lot of damage later on once you get set up. So you don't need to like rush to do damage early before the setup. There's just like no benefit to Trifielding in this deck either, right? I just don't see a benefit if you're going second. You don't have a clean cut. You only have the JC that nobody else runs. Your level 0s don't really do a lot, so like you just don't want to attack that many times. Like you run bombs, right? You run like the Ferin bomb and then your Climax Swap is a bomb. So you're using your level 0s often to trade with what your opponent already has on the board or set up threats that, like let's say your opponent opens a runner, right? And Chaser is the best example. They open a Chaser that can be bombed at level 0. You play Ferin bomb Climax Swap because you already have the right Climax in hand. You don't want them to hit level 1 because one of your bombs is going to trade for the Chaser. The other bomb is going to direct. If your opponent is still at level 0, that bomb on the field will trade for their attacker, right? It will 1-for-1 with the attacker. So it gets to attack and then it gets to profitably 1-for-1. Now you have a direct lane to do extra damage with, right? But if you hit your opponent to level 1, they can play a level 1 in that slot. They can kill your bomb for free. And now if they don't have a direct lane, you have to contest with a level 1. So like, since Ferin runs so many bombs at level 0, it is in its advantage to keep their opponent at level 0 for as long as possible so that their bombs get maximum value. And then once you hit level 1, you can do the Ferin stuff, right? So yeah, this deck also should not Trifield. If you Trifield as Ferin, I think you're kind of trolling probably if you go second. Oh yeah, by the way, I hope this was clear. This is all about going second. If you go first on your turn 2, you should be Trifielding. I think you should, like every deck in the game, if you go first on turn 2, you should Trifield. This is if you go second on your first turn, do you Trifield? I hope that's clear. Okay, all right. In the don't Trifield section, again, it's not that they can't, it's that you really don't want to. If you Trifield on these decks, I think you're trolling. Okay, and the first deck, and this might also cause people to, I mean, this is true. Nikkei, don't Trifield a Nikkei. What are you doing? This deck cannot afford to Trifield going second. This deck has such a problem early game, right? Mernia is a cracked level 1 combo, but setting up Mernia is so hard. You need so many pieces to get Mernia online, right? Because you're not privileged to have a Brainstorm that gives Krush. If this set had a Brainstorm that gave Krush, this entire deck would be broken. But instead, you have to use Summer Rappy. And Summer Rappy is a card that you have to field on board and then bounce back to your hand. So you can't afford to attack with Summer Rappy. If you had a clean cut, or like a good clean cut that everybody ran, you could attack with Summer Rappy, clean cut Summer Rappy to back row, and the next turn you have Summer Rappy on board, play the Climax. But we don't have a good clean cut. So here we are, I guess. And so like Mernia also with the Climax combo will get you the stock, right? If you set up Mernia correctly with Summer Rappy giving it the top check, you are very likely to see a level, is it 2? Yeah, see a level 2 or higher, and that will be the extra stock that you would have gotten from Trifielding. Except if you have double Mernia, you can do this twice, and now you have 1 more stock, right? And so you get so much stock back with the Mernia combo that if you Trifield and then lose out on a Mernia combo, it's actually worse, right? Like let's say if you attack 3 times and then now you can only single Mernia instead of double Mernia, it's like so much worse for you. Versus like I just attacked twice and now I comfortably double or triple Mernia and like everything's great, everything's amazing, right? So basically, if you go second in Nikkei, just attack twice. Don't think about Trifielding. Think about getting all your pieces for the Mernia combo. So 1-0 Mernia, Summer Rappy, whatever else you need to like confirm top checks, deltas, and stuff like that. And you want to conserve your hand because like Mernia, once you get your Mernia combo online, it's like freaking game over. So don't Trifield if you're playing Nikkei. You are probably trolling if you do. Okay. And the last one is going to be a Bunny Girl. So it's pretty funny how like the best decks supposedly that people think of in this format, like the top 2 decks that are most popular in this format, should not be Trifielding going second, right? But why does Bunny Girl not want to Trifield going second? It's because they don't need to, and so again, it's risk. Their level 0 game is really bad. Their level 0, you have like the runner, which is okay, and then every other card at level 0 is like it's weak. It's like it's so bad, and so like you don't really want to like lose a bunch of resources and play a bunch of bad zeros for your opponent to just farm, right? You just like lose a bunch of resources that way. Second of all, they have Sakuta and the vanilla, so like once you hit level 1, you just get free stock. So like you don't need to attack at 0 to get stock. Your deck has free stock generation. It's like better than handed stock. You just get free stock. So like yeah, well, you just get free stock. So even though yeah, sure, your like top end is pretty stock intensive, you try to go for triple, sometimes double is enough, but like yeah, generally speaking, you want to go for triple. But like you have the free stock machine, you have the 1-0 Sakuta, so like you don't need to attack 3 times going second to get stock. You can just get stock by playing the game normally, and you will be fine. Yeah, like in general, if you don't attack 3 times at 0, your runner has a better chance of like getting value. Your 3K vanillas could potentially even like plus by like staying on the board for an extra turn. It just allows you to play the game more comfortably. Also, like a lot of the cards that need to go to memory don't cost stock anymore, because like level 0 Riki doesn't cost stock. There's some other options that you can use to not cost stock, or you're using those cards later. So like the 2-1 event, right, is like a card that will go to memory that people are playing, right? And you don't need to utilize that or access that stock early. You just need the stock later, right? So you're not trying to generate a bunch of stock early in this deck. Generally speaking, you want to like pump yourself up to the stock threshold right before going for the kill turn. That also means you're not susceptible to stock swap and stuff like that. So this is also a deck that really has a good stability in early game, or they have an issue if they destabilize early games. Therefore, they should not be Trifielding, in my opinion. Okay, so this is my tier list for early game stability. At the top, we have some of the best decks in the format. These decks should not be Trifielding. And then going down into the very bottom, thankfully, we do not have any decks that have to Trifield in 2025. However, these are some theoretical examples of decks that on paper should have to Trifield, but in reality either do not exist anymore, praise the Lord, or players are just playing around it and opting for just like a weaker game plan as a result. Because the threat of stability is so great that it is preferable to just take a weaker game plan and catch up later than to throw your game out away at level 0 for like a gamble, right? That's basically what Trifielding is for a lot of decks. It's a gamble, and a lot of decks don't benefit from the gamble. So I think the decks that are really trying to Trifield are in like the wants to tier. Like these are just the decks that are set up to win. They are the house, right? These decks are the odds are in their favor. They want to gamble, they want to bet because they are the house. They're gonna win. If you are not the house, you should not be gambling. Right? You should never bet against the house. You should have a stable early game. You're gonna have a better game overall, because Weiss Schwarz decks are good. They're built to be good at strong points in the game, and therefore it's a good idea to set yourself up to experience the strength of Weiss Schwarz decks when they are strong. And most decks are not strong early. That makes sense, right? That makes sense. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this kind of video. This is like easier for me to make personally, so I might be doing more of these kinds of videos, but I will also have deck profiles and other like more highly edited content down the line. Yeah. So I've just been really busy playing Uma Musume, so forgive me. All right. If you have any comments, questions, let me know what decks you play. And if you don't know where on the tier list it goes, I'll let you know in the comments below. So like that'll be kind of fun, right? If you have any questions about like where does my deck go, you can ask in the comments. I'll let you know. But yeah, hope this helps. Let's open up the discussion more about Trifielding, right? And especially for newer players, we want to encourage newer players to play the game slower so that they can experience all the game before they are like basically pushed to do gambling, right? Like, yeah. All right. Anyways, that's enough rambling from me. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.